Good morning. Today's jobs numbers are a massive letdown for Canadians. 200,000 Canadians have lost their jobs as a result of Justin Trudeau's third wave. 200,000 personnes ont perdu leur emploi à cause de la troisième vague de Justin Trudeau. For months, as provinces pleaded for more vaccines, Justin Trudeau came up short and categorically failed to keep COVID variants out of Canada. Mr. Trudeau has failed to keep our border under control for over a year, and he failed to secure vaccine supply needed in January and February. Monsieur Trudeau a complètement échoué à empêcher les variants de la COVID-19 à entrer au Canada. Il n'a pas réussi à garder le contrôle de nos frontières et il n'a pas réussi à assurer un stock en vaccins en janvier et en février. This is what Mr. Trudeau's third wave looks like. It means tens of thousands of job losses in sectors like retail, accommodation and food services, information, culture, and recreation. These losses have very real consequences for Canadian families. Dans des pays comme les États-Unis et le Royaume-Uni, les cas et les hospitalisations diminuent. En même temps, les entreprises réouvrent, les terrasses sont pleines et les partisans retournent voir les matchs sportifs en personne. Tout cela parce que la population est vaccinée. In countries like the United States and the United Kingdom, cases and hospitalizations are dropping. Businesses are opening, restaurant patios are busy, and fans are returning to watch in-person sporting events. This morning, we learned that the United States gained 250,000 jobs in April as their economy reopens. That is happening because sufficient parts of their population are vaccinated. Our job losses were avoidable. We are in the third wave of COVID-19 and of job losses because of the Trudeau government's inaction and incompetence. Canadians will continue to feel let down as long as Mr. Trudeau is left in charge of our economy. Pour protéger l'économie canadienne, les conservateurs vont mettre en œuvre le plan de rétablissement du Canada. Nous allons récupérer des millions d'emplois dans les secteurs les plus touchés par la pandémie, en plus d'aider les personnes qui souffrent le plus, comme les femmes et les jeunes. To secure the Canadian economy, Canada's Conservatives will implement Canada's Recovery Plan that will recover the million jobs lost in the sectors hit hardest by the pandemic and help those who've suffered the most, including women and young people. We won't leave any Canadian behind. Thank you. Merci beaucoup.
Starting with question on the phone. Quick reminder, as usual, one question and one follow-up. Nous allons maintenant prendre les questions en commençant par les questions au téléphone. Petit rappel, une question avec une question de suivi. Today, Mr. O'Toole will take 6 questions. Aujourd'hui, M. O'Toole prendra 6 questions. Operator, do we have the first question?
Yes, thank you. Merci. Please press star 1 at this time to ask a question. S'il vous plaît, appuyez sur étoile 1 maintenant pour poser une question. La première question est de l'inaudible de la presse canadienne. La parole est à vous.
Oui, bonjour, M. O'Toole. Moi, j'aimerais vous parler de la suspension des brevets des vaccins contre la COVID-19. J'ai vu la lettre que vous avez envoyée à M. Trudeau hier. Il me semble que, vous voulez qu'on explore. Vous êtes un peu dans le même vocabulaire que le gouvernement là, qui parle de négocier la chose, mais il y a au moins 3 de vos députés et une sénatrice de votre parti qui, eux, signent une lettre beaucoup plus directe, qui veulent absolument la suspension des brevets. Alors, pouvez-vous m'expliquer votre position? Pourquoi ne pas y aller directement et réclamer la suspension des brevets plutôt que juste de s'engager à en parler?
Merci pour la question, Lina. Les conservateurs, nous appuyons une suspension des règles de propriété intellectuelle pour les vaccins en pleine pandémie. On doit travailler ensemble pour lutter contre la pandémie à travers le monde. Et c'est pourquoi j'ai envoyé une lettre au Premier ministre hier sur ça. Et en même temps, on doit avoir un plan pour les vaccins, pour COVAX aussi, parce que M. Trudeau a eu des vaccins pour les pays les plus pauvres et on doit avoir un plan pour remplacer les vaccins à COVAX. We conservatives support a temporary suspension to intellectual property rules in this pandemic to help get vaccines as quickly around the world as possible. We have to fight COVID-19 around the world together, and Canada has to play its part. We support that as conservatives. I also wrote the Prime Minister yesterday to ask him to have a plan to replace the COVAX vaccines intended for the developing world that he took several months ago. We need to have a plan to make those whole, to secure our reputation and to play a role.
Mais Monsieur O'Toole, ce que je lis dans votre lettre, c'est pas une demande de suspension des brevets. Vous écrivez à Monsieur Trudeau que vous voudriez qu'il explore la suspension des brevets. Alors, j'aimerais ça que vous me rendiez ça très, très clair. Est-ce que vous demandez que le Canada appuie la suspension des brevets ou est-ce que vous demandez que le Canada réfléchisse et négocie la chose?
Non, nous appuyons une suspension. C'est important pour moi d'être clair. Hier, j'ai envoyé une lettre sur ça et j'ai dit qu'on doit travailler avec le gouvernement de président Biden sur les vaccins, sur COVAX et sur la situation avec les propriétés internationales pour les vaccins.
Operator, next question. Opérateur, prochaine question.
Merci, thank you. The next question is from Bill Curry of the Globe and Mail. Please go ahead.
Hi, Mr. O'Toole. Last evening at the Canadian Heritage Committee, the Liberals released or read into the record some amendments to Bill C-10 that they say would address the concerns that you and others are raising, that this would regulate social media posts of Canadians. I don't know if you've had a chance to look at these. It's two main amendments, but what's your reaction to the amendments and how is your party going to manage this bill when it comes up in the House today, because the Liberals say that you're filibustering?
Thank you, Bill. These amendments that have been suggested do not protect the freedom of expression and the concerns that not only the Conservative Party has, but thousands of Canadians have. The Liberals, quite frankly, tried to sneak a change into this bill at the end that would have allowed regulation of social media posts by Canadians. The more people hear about this, the more concern they have. That freedom is fundamental and is really a great equalizer for our society. So we will fight hard. And Bill, it's not just us. Several former commissioners of the CRTC have also called this act an attack on free expression. And they really want the minister, who has poorly explained this bill from the start, to pull his bill and start fresh.
Is there a follow-up?
Can we also get your comments on the decision that Katie Telford will appear at Defense Committee? What will your party be trying to achieve with your questioning?
I'm glad to see Ms. Telford step forward to be accountable after several weeks of the Liberals filibustering on this. Canadians deserve the truth. And what Ms. Telford will have to show today is, has Mr. Trudeau been truthful with Canadians with respect to what he's known over 3 years with regard to allegations against the former Chief of Defence Staff? Either he knew more than he's letting on, he's already changed his story with respect to Me Too allegations and this sort of excuse he gives, or Ms. Telford will have to explain to Canadians why she felt it appropriate to hide this critical information from the Prime Minister. That was a failure to women in our Canadian Armed Forces, a failure to the spirit of Operation Honor that their government was supporting. So I'm glad that Ms. Telford will be able to tell Canadians whether the Prime Minister has not been truthful or why she thought this cover-up to keep the information from the Prime Minister was appropriate.
Prochaine question. Operator, next question.
Thank you, merci. Et la prochaine question est de Marie Vastel, Le Devoir. La parole est à vous.
Bonjour, M. O'Toole. J'aimerais revenir sur les discussions à l'OMC sur la suspension des brevets sur les vaccins de COVID. Il y en a qui disent, en revanche, contrairement à votre position, il y en a qui disent que c'est pas si simple que ça, que de suspendre les brevets ne réglerait pas nécessairement le problème à court terme, parce qu'il faut quand même avoir l'équipement, pouvoir importer l'équipement pour les produire. Mais il y a aussi des gens qui disent que le Canada est un peu dans une situation délicate parce qu'on doit protéger le Canada doit protéger ses propres contrats avec les compagnies pharmaceutiques dont il attend encore des livraisons de vaccins. Qu'est-ce que vous répondez à ça, à cette idée qu'il faut peut-être s'abstenir d'appuyer la résolution à l'OMC pour protéger nos propres livraisons de vaccins à venir?
Comme vous le savez, Marie, on a demandé les contrats il y a 6 mois sur les vaccins, les contrats avec les entreprises pharmaceutiques. Mais comme d'habitude, le gouvernement Trudeau a caché les contrats. Donc, on ne sait pas s'il y a des restrictions dans les contrats. Mais on doit travailler en étroite collaboration avec les États-Unis sur la pandémie, particulièrement pour les vaccins, pour les pays les plus pauvres à travers le monde, parce qu'on doit lutter contre la COVID-19, pas juste chez nous, mais à travers le monde.
Je comprends, mais c'est pas nécessairement une question de ce qu'il y a dans les contrats. C'est aussi un peu une évidence que si un pays comme le Canada fait quelque chose qui déplaît aux compagnies pharmaceutiques, elles pourraient décider d'être un peu moins, de collaborer un peu moins pour la livraison des vaccins. Donc qu'est-ce que vous faites de cet argument-là qu'il y a un risque pour nous si on fait ça pour les autres, dans le fond?
Il n'y a pas un risque parce que les entreprises américaines et les entreprises européennes sont les entreprises en charge des vaccins. Et si les pays comme ça, comme les États-Unis et le Royaume-Uni, ont en faveur d'une approche d'une suspension, ça serait possible. Et on doit examiner toutes les possibilités pour aider les pays les plus pauvres.
Nous allons prendre les prochaines questions de la salle. We will take the next question from the room.
Okay, I guess I'll go. Hi, it's Annie Bergeron-Oliver from CTV National News. Your party has been calling for Katie Telford's resignation. I'm just wondering, why you believe this is necessary and what do you think it will accomplish?
Well, today we want to get to the truth, and I'm very happy to see Ms. Telford feels it's appropriate to finally appear after weeks of avoiding accountability. There are 2 options here, Annie. Ms. Telford will either let us know that Mr. Trudeau has not been forthright with what he actually knew about these allegations over 3 years, or she will have to explain to Canadians why she felt it appropriate to hide from the Prime Minister critical information that would have helped root out a culture that Operation Honor was intending to do with the Canadian Armed Forces. Everyone around the Prime Minister was aware of the allegations against General Vance. Why did she think the Prime Minister did not deserve to know that information? She'll have to explain that today.
So that kind of goes with my follow-up question. If Katie Telford in the committee testifies that she did not tell the Prime Minister about these allegations, what concerns does this raise in your opinion?
If she chose to keep serious allegations against one of the most senior appointments that Mr. Trudeau makes as Prime Minister, the head of our military, one of the largest organizations, and they charged him with changing the culture with respect to cover-ups and with respect to sexual misconduct. If she chose to keep that from him, something that serious, how many other things is Ms. Telford keeping from the Prime Minister? We know that in his first ethical scandal, where he was convicted with respect to the private island holiday, he told the Ethics Commissioner he views his job as ceremonial in nature. Does Ms. Telford feel the same way? Canadians deserve a leader. They don't deserve a photo op in chief.
We will take the next question from the floor. Nous allons prendre la prochaine question de la salle.
Stephanie Taylor with the Canadian Press. Besides vaccinations, how can the federal government specifically get the more than 300,000 people who've been out of a job since last April back to work? Like, what are the specific steps of the federal government should be taking besides the vaccinations, which we do have?
That's an important question, Stephanie. Thank you. I've said for half a year now, the three tools we need to use as Canadians to fight COVID and have a safe and effective data-driven reopening are vaccines, rapid tests and screening, and information. We saw how last week, between the minister, the prime minister, PHAC, NACI, they couldn't even get information straight with respect to the use of vaccines by Canadians. Mr. Trudeau, a year ago, promised a system of national screening and testing. He's failed to deliver that. We know we're slow on the vaccines. We will need rapid screening and testing and a national approach to standards and deployment to have that safe opening so that my wife and kids can visit their grandparents and family in Nova Scotia. We will need, even after vaccines, rapid screening and testing. I've been demanding leadership on that for a year, and we asked the Prime Minister to finally step up and deliver promises he made in the first wave.
When, in your mind, should Canada consider sending some of our vaccines to COVAX or other countries that may be in need? What is the criteria in your mind? What is the threshold for our domestic vaccinations?
I'm glad you raised that because I included that in my letter to the Prime Minister yesterday. We need to work with the Americans on ways, even including suspending temporarily intellectual property, to help the world fight COVID together. We have to do that. We also have to have a plan to replenish what Mr. Trudeau took from COVAX because he had failed on domestic vaccine procurement. I believe once the provinces are at full deployment capacity of their capacity to get vaccines out and we have inventory, that is when we can start exploring how to use that inventory to help allies, to help other countries in the world. Consistently over the last few months, the provinces have been about 50% capacity. We're in this third wave because Mr. Trudeau didn't get the supply when he needed it. But once we hit that capacity, fill that deployment of vaccine capacity, we should look at playing our role.
We will take the last question from the floor. Nous allons prendre la dernière question de la salle.
Hi, Mr. O'Toole. Good morning. David Thurton, CBC News. What responsibility do you assign to the provinces? What responsibility do they need to take for these disappointing job numbers that are out today?
Well, I feel for the provinces in a great way. I know that they had the logistics in place to deploy vaccines much faster. They just didn't have the supply. Mr. Trudeau failed to get that supply in January and February. The countries that did not fail are reopening. They're filling sports stadiums. They're seeing restaurants full again. They're seeing job creation, not more job losses. So I think the provinces have done their best with limited vaccines, limited rapid tests, and limited information from the federal government. We need the vaccines. We need to maximize that deployment capacity. And as Conservatives have fought for over a month, let's have a plan now for a safe and data-driven reopening. We have to get ready for that now so that we can boom back and save as many jobs as possible.
Mr. O'Toole, you said that the provinces have done their best with a limited amount of rapid tests, but we do know through reporting that CBC and other places have done that there's a number of rapid tests that haven't been used by the provinces. And, so I guess I would ask that question again, like, what responsibility do the provinces have to take for the situation that we're in?
On rapid tests, David, the federal government approves and sets the standard. They were 6 months late in doing that. So by the time most tests got out and were approved by the federal government, which approves them as medical devices, the provinces were in the second wave of the pandemic. I have asked for federal leadership on a rapid screening and testing approach that starts at the border, at airports, at ports, at all areas of federal jurisdiction, but allows for consistency across the province on how the tests are used, because we will need that for safe and effective reopening of workplaces with people in close proximity. We will need that so that my family can go visit family in Nova Scotia and that Canadians can reunite. So let's finally see some federal leadership here. We're going to continue to demand that. I've been asking for it for a year.
C'est all the time we have. C'est tout le temps que nous avions. Merci.
Merci beaucoup. Thank you.